Good morning, students. Miss Alvarez here. Today for our math lesson, we will continue to work on elapsed time. We started elapsed time on Monday, and today we will focus on using a number line to help us find the elapsed time. So our I can statement for today is I can find elapsed time using a number line. Now, we have used number lines all of third grade now, and we've also used it recently with our fractions, so we should know how to understand and how to make a number line. So what we're going to work on today is we are going to look at a word problem together, and then we will create our number line to help us solve for that elapsed time that the word problem is asking us to look for. Okay, so our problem for today is Rory ended soccer practice at 7:15 p.m. His soccer practice lasted for 75 minutes. What time did his soccer practice start? So let's look at our problem very carefully first. Our question, what it's asking us to find is the time that his soccer practice started. We don't know what time it started, but we do have a time in our problem. So let's go back and let's underline what we think is important from our word problem. Okay, so Rory ended soccer practice at 7:15 p.m. So I know that 7:15 p.m. is important because that tells me what time his soccer practice stopped. So I'm going to go ahead and underline that. And then we also know that his soccer practice lasted for 75 minutes. It doesn't tell me what time it started, but it does tell me how long it lasted. So 75 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and underline that as well. And then the very last part of my problem is what time did his soccer practice start? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and underline 2. Underline that 2. So that's what we're looking for. We're wanting to look for a time that his soccer practice started. We are giving the time that it finishes, but we don't know what time it starts. So what we're going to do is we're going to use our number line so that we can use elapsed time to help us find out what time it started just by using the time that it ended and how long this event actually lasted. Because remember, when we're talking about elapsed time, we are talking about the time, the amount of time that passes from the beginning of an event to the end of the event. So we're wanting to see how much time passed from the beginning of his soccer practice to the end of his soccer practice. So I'm going to go ahead and take out my number line. So I went ahead and drew my number line. Hopefully you can see it. This is the beginning and this is the very end. Now, again, I don't know what time his soccer practice started, but I do know the time that it finished. So I'm going to go ahead and write 7:15 p.m. at the very end of my number line because I know that's the time that his soccer practice ended. So I'm going to write that down at the very end. Okay. 7:15 p.m. Now, notice that I already split my number line into 5-minute intervals because that's what you guys have been working on for the past week. So I went ahead and split my number line into parts of 5 minutes, okay? So what I'm going to do, first I'm going to go back and I'm going to look at my problem again, just so that I can keep that in my head. So I know that his soccer practice lasted for 75 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and write this number down just to help me. 75 minutes. That's how long it was in total. Now, I know that 1 hour is the same thing as 60 minutes. And I know that 75 is more than 60 minutes. So I know that there's at least 1 hour in those 75 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and subtract 60 from those 75. And I'm going to be left with 15 because 75 minus 60 is 15. So that means that those 75 minutes, it's the same thing as 60 minutes and 15 minutes. So you can even say that 60 minutes, you know, that 60 minutes is the same thing or is equivalent to 1 hour. And then we also know that there are 15 minutes left to complete those 75 minutes. So now I've splitted my 75 minutes into smaller numbers to help me understand the problem a little bit better. So I know that 75 minutes is the same thing as 60 minutes or an hour and 15 minutes added together. Because if I add these numbers back up, it's going to give me the same number as 75. So 75 is the same thing as 60 minutes and 15 minutes combined together. So now I'm going to go back to my number line. And I'm going to count backwards using those 5-minute intervals to help me find the start time of the soccer practice. So I'm starting at the very end because that's what I have. I don't know what my start time is, so I can't start at the beginning of my number line. I have to start at my end. I've already splitted my number line into 5-minute intervals, so I'm just going to count back in intervals of 5. Okay? So 7:15, take away 5 minutes from 7:15, that would leave me to 7:10. So my next one would be 7:10 p.m. And then if I take 5 minutes off of that, it would be 7:05 p.m. So that would be my next one. And then my next one, if I take 5 minutes off from 7:05, it's going to be 7 p.m. And I'm going to keep doing that until I go all the way to the very beginning of my number line. So 7 p.m. And then if I take 5 minutes away from 7 p.m., it's not going to be 7 anymore. It's going to go backwards because those are zeros right there. I'm going to go to 6. And remember, an hour has 60 minutes. So it's not going to be 60 minutes. It's actually going to be 60 minus 5, which would be 55. So if it's 7 o'clock and you take away 5 minutes, it's actually going to be 6:55. Okay, and then I'm going to keep going until I reach my starting point. So 6:55 minus 5 minutes would be 6:50. 6:50 minus 5 minutes would be 6:45. 6:45 minus 5 minutes would be 6:40. 6:40 minus 5 minutes would be 6:35. 6:35 minus 5 minutes would be 6:30. 6:30 minus 5 minutes would be 6:25. 6:25 minus 5 minutes is 6:20. 6:20 minus 5 minutes is 6:15. 6:15 minus 5 minutes is 6:10. And 6:10 minus 5 minutes is 6:05. And then lastly, because remember the very beginning of my number line is this one, so I can't stop there, I have to go all the way. 6:05 minutes, 6:05 minus 5 minutes would be 6 o'clock. So I counted backwards. It's the same thing. I'm using 5-minute intervals, but I'm just counting backwards. And if you want to count, this way, you'll see that it's still the same thing, 5-minute intervals. 6:05, it goes from 6, 6:05, 6:10, 6:15, 6:20. So those are 5-minute intervals. So now I know that Rory's soccer practice started at 6 p.m. and it lasted 75 minutes all the way until 7:15 p.m. And the way that you can make sure that these are 75 minutes is you can count by 5s until you reach 75. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to start with 6. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60, 65, 70, and 75. So there you see, those are 75 minutes that his soccer practice lasted. So now we can go back and answer our question. Because remember, our question was asking us, what time did his soccer practice start? Well, it started at 6 o'clock p.m.